everyone. Let me start off with something we probably see in different forms. We've worked hard to get great visibility into cloud spend, but the next question is often the harder one. What does it actually mean for the business? Now, this is where unit economics comes in. It's all about translating technology and cloud spend into clear business metrics, like cost per customer, cost per transaction, or cost per order. In this talk, I'll share how we can actually move from the concept to implementation and make that connection actually useful in day-to-day decisions. So let's start off a bit high level. How do we actually define unit costs and unit economics? Now, cloud unit economics translates cloud spend into meaningful business metrics to maximize profits and drive smarter decisions. So have a think about, instead of saying something like, oh, we've spent X amount of money on cloud this month, instead, what does this actually mean for the business? What value did that dollar amount bring? And to do so, we can quantify it through unit costs. Now, I've got a unit cost formula up there. It just says cost over unit. And it's not very specific. And that's actually on purpose, because there is no correct definition of one particular unit cost that can solve all our problems. That's the key concept. The right unit cost is what the unit cost that means the most to you, to your business, or to the different personas in your business. It really is the one that helps helps best reflect the cost of driving value in your business. So in order to kind of take that down, let's have a look at some more clear examples. In the FinOps world, you might have come across any of these four examples, something like cost per gigabyte stored, cost per user, cost per usage for an internal platform, or cloud cost per revenue. They're all in completely different areas of the business, but they're all unit costs. So how we can actually start thinking about unit costs is having a think of the key FinOps personas. There's engineering, there's finance, leadership, product, they're all around us. What makes unit economics really powerful in FinOps is that it gives each persona a metric that they can actually act upon and bring value from. So let's have a look at engineering first. Something like cost per gigabyte stored. That's something that engineers can use to track optimizations. If they've done something, some optimizations on their end, they'd want to track that. So looking at something like cost per gigabyte can allow them to actually see how it's tracking over time. Has the optimization actually delivered value, or is it actually not, has it not actually created any change? That can be a good indication of it. And on the other hand, maybe they might want to identify optimizations. In that case, that's when the unit cost is actually going upwards. That's not something that you'd probably want if you want to bring it down. So it can actually help you identify an opportunity. And all of that kind of combined can help engineering guide those architecture decisions, keeping that unit cost in mind, that cost per gigabyte stored, when considering their roadmap. If we move on to someone like finance, we can consider an internal platform, so maybe a certain team like a networking team or an observability team that creates a product for other internal teams from your company to use. What that usually means is that team is responsible for that big chunk of costs. Well, from the finance lens, it would be really good to know, well, what is this cost per serve for that particular platform cost? So that can actually help with forecasting. So for an internal consuming team, they're able to understand, well, if we were to use this internal observability tool, for example, well, that would cost us this amount per a unit of usage. It can also help with cost allocation. So we might be able to sort of see that out of that, let's say 10 million spend on that observability platform, we can actually attribute 1 million back to this team. And it can also just help give a good cost per serve visibility. That can help teams when they have conversations with finance to understand really what that internal platform truly costs. And that can also help on the other end of the consuming teams. They'd know sort of what, if they're sort of to onboard onto that internal platform, what that would cost. And we can also have a look at leadership. Cloud cost per revenue shows how efficiently the business converts infrastructure spend into revenue, so that leadership can assess whether growth is scaling profitably. So across all these three different personas, the common thread is this: unit costs translate cloud into something more tangible that the group can understand, influence, and ultimately use to drive better decisions for them. again, we can sort of extend unit costs further. We can put them into different categories and kind of see that link between them. So technical is sort of similar to what we had in the engineering space, but could sort of translate that into cost per API call or compute hour. If we have a look at product, how much does it actually cost to deliver value for the products we build? So you can have a think about cost per customer, cost per transaction, whatever your business drives. And profitability. Is growth financially sustainable? So that, again, would be something like the gross margin per product or cost to serve by customer segment. So we've taken a look at sort of defining those unit costs, but now we can actually have a look at how can we implement it within existing processes. And so rather than thinking about unit costs as something completely new, it's often easier to start off with processes that teams already know and act upon, and we already have existing in our FinOps space, and then ask what unit cost can naturally fit in here. So we can also see the FinOps Foundation, that would be the walk phase. So this is where we actually integrate it. Let's take a look at forecasting. This is where we can sort of use that finance persona. We can have a cost per serve, and that can sort of implement to help drive forecasting, especially when we do have an internal platform and we want to have a better visibility into it. Something like anomaly detection is also something where unit costs can help deliver value. And optimizations, that's that cost per gigabyte stored, cost per compute hour. We can see how optimizations help improve that unit cost. So one example that I have that we actually were able to generate a lot more value than we even anticipated by implementing unit costs was when I was working with a team on our existing anomaly process. So we had an anomaly process. It would basically create a ticket when there was a cost spike, and it would send it automatically to a team. That team would then be responsible to give reason behind it, say if they're expecting it to drop, to go back to normal, or give a reason to why it's increased. Now, this was a networking team, and they had a product that other internal teams used, but they were responsible for it ultimately. But there was that lack of visibility of, well, is it actually an internal team using, increasing their usage? And so that's why we've had a spike. Is it actually we've done something that has changed our architecture of the product, and it's actually due to our own actions? So what we implemented was a graph of how that unit cost per serve has changed over time. And that then allowed them to sort of see, is it tracking pretty stably? That means that it's most likely due to increased usage from a consumer. If it's gone up, then they can actually think about it more so from the fact that it is something that they've done on their end. But it didn't actually stop there. It helped them answer the question that in this example, it was due to an increased usage. But what was interesting was that they started using that graph to track their own optimizations. So that same unit cost they were able to use for a different FinOps function. And then also they started using it in their conversations with finance. So they were then able to sort of take that same unit cost. There was no further work being done, but they were able to talk to finance and say, this is how much we expect one unit to cost for our platform. And then finance used it to talk to the consumers and use that. So basically, we had one dashboard, one visualization that got used in 3 different functions across 2 different engineering teams and the finance team. So basically, everything existed already. It was just that one addition that allowed us to bring a lot more value for those teams. Now, to wrap this up, the key takeaway here is that unit economics does not need to be complicated to get started. You can start by considering your organization's key personas, who you want to target by this and who can get value from something like this. You can listen out to existing unit costs that may already be used in FinOps discussions. They might just not be formalized as unit economics, but they will likely exist somewhere in those conversations. And you can keep unit economics and unit costs in mind when considering your already existing FinOps functions. Have a think where it might naturally fit in. Because small changes like all of these can have a big impact on how teams understand and act upon cloud spend. And that's truly the goal with unit economics, making cloud costs easy to understand and easier to act upon. Your initial unit costs don't need to be perfect whatsoever. It's all about getting this journey started and then working across it. So thank you so much, everyone.
Hey everyone, producer Andrew here. Thanks for watching. Check out the rest of our channel for more FinOps content. Like, subscribe, and leave questions and comments for our speakers. We appreciate your support.